Well, good afternoon, Nele. Thank you so much for making the
I
time to be here today. So of course we've gone through your report. We've gone through pieces of work that you told us about, and we just have a couple of questions for you. Okay, so starting off, wonderful. Okay, so I wanted to ask about your eating disorder campaigns. Of course, how is it going? What's the progress being made, and how is it for the men's focused events? What are the plans for that?
That's a really good question. So my plan was originally to kind of have this campaign, and that is still the plan. So the plan is to have this campaign kind of not as a coherent week, like I have Shark Week, where it's just like 1 week of events, but kind of different events that all like spread into the same topic like throughout the year. And the original like kind of initial kickoff point has been, no, it hasn't been cancelled, but we had to reschedule it unfortunately because it was meant to be at our student group refresher day, and we thought it would be a really kind of good way to kind of kick off the campaign, get some students involved, kind of see what the feedback is, if that is something that student groups want to kind of get involved with, and especially for kind of sports teams where eating disorders could be maybe more prevalent than in other groups. So we kind of wanted to do it there, and that unfortunately didn't happen because the timing didn't work out. And I was still kind of stuck in interviews when I was supposed to deliver the training, which was a bit unfortunate, and kind of like I was a bit upset about that didn't happen. So that's kind of where we're at now. So the content is already for the student group training, and I'm currently working out a date before Shack Week kicks off in 4 weeks to kind of have a session that's kind of open to all students and student groups, just everyone who's interested, to kind of give that induction talk that I wanted to give at the student group refresher day, and then at the same time put that information that is all ready to go on social media for people to kind of just see it and kind of initially start to get involved with it. And then I have a meeting scheduled with Chris Shelley, who's the head of student academic services from the university, to kind of talk with him about how the university could get involved in that campaign. And I also know from the Faculty of Engineering and Science that there's some interest to kind of collaborate on that kind of campaign together with me, because they have a program that is around human nutrition, which is obviously kind of fits very well into that. So unfortunately, it's not quite as far as I would have liked it to be. But yeah, it's in the process, and I hope we can have that initial kickoff of kind of this year-long campaign in the next month. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
It does wonderfully. Thank you so much. And you mentioned some really, really great points that shows that you are taking active steps, even though you were delayed a little bit. Okay, so probably still on that just before we go to the next question. So in a month's time, as we'll use that time frame that you just dropped for me. So in a month's time, what do you hope to have achieved? What's the big bang of the start of this campaign? What would you have to bring to us to show evidence of the birth of this new campaign?
Yeah, so in a month's time, I would have hoped to have that kind of initial event, and hopefully kind of have put out the comms for that, so just advertise it to kind of our liberation groups and the Feminism Society, the LGBTQ plus society, because I know there's some interest there kind of around that topic, and then obviously put it out to kind of our psychology students as well. So I would have hopefully had like kind of a well-attended first meeting where maybe afterwards we would, so I was planning to kind of have the talk, do it like a bit of an interactive session, and then afterwards just have a bit of like an open kind of planning session. So if any society or something would get involved, we could just like have a chat about that, how that would be possible. So in a month's time, I would have hopefully had a well-attended kind of first event to introduce the campaign, and then some kind of actions with different student groups to take that forward.
Brilliant, great. Okay, so I'll hand over to Sophie for the next question.
Hi, Nele.
Hi.
So for the second question, in your report, you mentioned you were looking into either this report or your last report, the self-defense classes.
Yep.
Just wanted to see like how that was going and what your plans were for to bring it to the wider student body of the university.
Yeah, definitely. So we know that like so we had a self-defense class when I was still president of the Feminism Society and I was organizing Shag Week. So that was 2 years ago now. And we had a free self-defense class that, you know, we paid for from the GSUs, but so it was free to attend. And it was really, really successful. And students were like very appreciative of it and told us it was very empowering. And so I wanted to do that again. And originally I had thought to do it during Shag Week again. And kind of scraped that idea because we had like kind of prominent cases of kind of women, you know, meeting very tragic deaths with Sarah Everard and Sabina Nesse. And I felt like it wouldn't really fit into that kind of narrative that I'm seeking out for Shag Week of kind of like empowering, celebrating like sex and gender and stuff, not because it's not part of kind of the daily life of women or of liberation groups, because it definitely is, but just because I think it's like, it is important enough to make its own thing about it. So I kind of scraped the idea of doing it during Shag Week, and I'm not quite sure where it's going to fit in now. So it's definitely still on the agenda and we're definitely still going to do it. And after we spontaneously organized the vigil after Sabina Nesse's death, I got some DMs from students kind of asking if that is something that we can do. So I know there is an interest there, and I will be talking to our women's sports teams, which we collaborated with back then with FemSoc to deliver those classes, if that is something they want to get involved in as well with their members. So it is still in the plan, but it doesn't have a concrete date to it yet. Yeah.
Okay, great. And just as a follow-up question, as in Shag Week, as you said, the self-defense classes won't be fitting there. They're still, you know, ongoing. What do you hope to have in that place instead of self-defense? What do you hope to have in that? Yeah.
Yeah. So we are kind of, like I said, like the topic for Shag Week this year is very much kind of about empowering students, about celebrating sex, about it's not like we're not going to talk about problems that you know, liberation groups are facing when talking about gender and sexuality, but it is supposed to be very much kind of empowering. So we have a bunch of events that really kind of drive that narrative, drive that campaign. So we have a week-long exhibition at Greenwich where we ask students to kind of submit different art pieces, and that's under the topic celebrating sex. So students can really define, you know, what does celebrating sex and sexuality mean for me personally, and they are invited to kind of share that with us in the exhibition, and kind of throughout the week. So the exhibition is going to be interactive, and students will have the opportunity to kind of feed in during the week. We have someone coming in who is going to give a class on safe BDSM practices. We're going to have a consent workshop. We're going to have a workshop on, you know, how can I communicate about sex and gender, because it is like such a kind of taboo topic, and I really want to empower students and give them kind of the tools to talk about these things. And then we're just going to have a bunch of events that are centered around like students just having a good time. I think that is like such a really, really important thing during campaigns. So we're planning a drag show. We're planning pole dance tryout sessions. So it's really about students kind of stepping out of their comfort zone a little bit, trying new things, exploring, you know, what does sex and sexuality really mean to me. So yeah, I went a bit on a bit of a rant there. I'm very excited about this campaign. I don't know if you can tell, but yes, that's what we're going to have instead, and then we'll be sure to kind of give the self-defense class and give the kind of very traumatizing events that are happening currently for the women and liberation groups in London the time and space that it deserves, really.
Okay, perfect. I look forward to seeing it, and thank you for answering my questions. Now, Jahari, do you want to answer the next question? Ask.
Okay. Hi, Nele. We know that you are doing a lot, so how would you make sure that students are aware of what you are doing?
That's a really good question. So I had a long think about how I can kind of utilize social media to kind of make sure I reach the students that I want to reach, because we take at the beginning of the year, we take over the social media accounts of the officers that we had before, that they had before. So I took over Mario's account, Attica took over Neil's account, it's just how it goes. So which makes a lot of sense, because you kind of start off with a follower base. But I was like, okay, how can I reach, because all these people were following Mario for 2 years. How can I kind of make sure that they now follow me? And I had a kind of long conversation with our comms team about that, about how I best can utilize social media to reach students that I want to reach. So I've kind of been actively seeking out help in that, because I think it's really, really important. All the work that I do doesn't really not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't really matter if students don't know about it. So I think I've become much more comfortable kind of utilizing social media to kind of make students aware of what I'm doing. I have kind of good connections to our liberation networks or our liberation societies, which is especially important for works like Shag Week or Women's History Month. So I hope that, they can kind of stay in contact with me, and I'm kind of actively trying to stay in contact with them. And yeah, I kind of, I'm planning on having a social media account for each campaign, just so people can post stuff on there, and there's going to be a hashtag for each campaign, so people can post their different kind of opinions, or if they attend events, they can just post it with the hashtag, tell me what they thought, as a way of kind of getting feedback. So yeah, and I am on campus a lot. We do still have the option to work from home at least 2 days a week. I don't really do that. I really like being on campus. I like being present for students. I like kind of to be able to answer their questions if they just stop me. I do want to kind of make sure that now students are back, I'm back too, and they can kind of see I'm here for them. So that's kind of the two things that I'm concentrating on: being present on my social media and being present in person.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here. Judith has now joined us. Welcome, Judith, as our fourth panelist. Judith, I was unable to make the start of this, but Judith, if you had any questions for Nele on her campaigns or plans, speak now. Otherwise, we can go back to Noah for any other questions.
Hello, thank you. I think you guys, what I've just heard now, already answered my questions. So that should be fine, thank you.
Perfect, thanks. So I'm just going to ask, are there any other panelists have any other questions for Nele? I'm looking around, give me a nod or a shake of the head. Yep, go for it now.
Just one. Awesome. Half question. Because you said something very, very interesting just a moment ago when you were giving us that wonderful breakdown about using social media to, improve student awareness. So why doesn't it necessarily matter so much to you whether students, see or not see what you're doing? Because I think it's a really, really beautiful way to show, I would say, appreciation of the work that you're doing. And I know there are a lot of students who, for example, um, they have this idea that the SU is just there. There's nothing really going on there. But, as evidenced by some of the things that you're saying, there's clearly quite a lot that you're doing. So why doesn't it necessarily matter so much whether or not they're seeing it?
That's a good question, actually. I mean, I kind of want students to see what I'm doing so they can kind of see. I think it's about being approachable, really, for me. I think, and that's why I'm trying to be like a kind of like a bit more personable on social media. Like I don't necessarily just write about work. Like I write, when I've posted about kind of books that I've read before as like recommendations or something. And I think it's just important that we kind of show people that we are, or like that I show people that I'm approachable. It's not even so much about I mean, it is about telling them about my work as well, because obviously that's what I do. But I think for me, it's about being approachable. It's about being kind of showing students that I'm here and that I can help them, and that, sometimes, I'm really kind of boring as well. Like, I just don't want them to be like, because I've kind of had students, or like not like a lot of kind of feedback that I've gotten on like a personal level is that people sometimes don't think I'm approachable, or that people like that I can be a bit intimidating, like not as an officer, just kind of as a person. And I'm trying to kind of actively work against that, because I've gotten that feedback before, and I don't want students to think that I'm not approachable. I don't want students to think that they can't ask me questions, because I'm working for them. Like that would be really, really counterproductive. So I think it's really about being approachable. It's about being just showing students that I'm there for them and that they can have a really like good time at Greenwich. And yeah, I don't know. I went on a bit of a ramble, but yeah, it's not. And obviously, it's important that students see what I'm doing, because I want them to get involved. Like, obviously, I'm really, really passionate about these things. So if no one turns up for them, that would kind of like make me really sad. So obviously, I want them to see what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And maybe just to tail off that, um, so in being more approachable, not just as a person but also as an officer, what would what does that look like for you? How do you make yourself more approachable in this line of work that you're doing? What kind of things are you going to be doing to sort of boost that up for yourself?
That's a good question. I mean, I think just being present is a big thing. I think both on social media and in person, just kind of being there is a good thing. I kind of like I'm trying to kind of just interact with students, which is like I sometimes find it really hard. Like on the welcome fairs, I really push myself to kind of go and talk to students groups, which isn't something that comes to me like super naturally. It kind of like takes a lot of as like a bit of a socially anxious person, it takes kind of a lot of getting over myself to do that. But I've actively kind of tried to challenge myself to do that, and just asking student groups what they're about. Just getting a lot of kind of opinions from people. I feel like I try and do a lot of kind of polls on social media, just asking people what they think about an event, or like asking people even just random stuff, like asking people like, I don't know, do they prefer coffee or tea? Like when I get a coffee, I like try, what's your favorite drink? Just getting people to interact and not and I think like if I can kind of manage to interact and get student feedbacks on, what's your favorite drink, it also makes it much more easier to get student feedback when we really need it. So for example, right now we're kind of asking students, is your timetable fixed? Are you happy with where are you teaching and where you're being taught? And if you're not, like, send us a picture and like tell us about your experience. And I think people are just more likely to do that if we can also interact on like a less serious level. So I try and like kind of have an air of approachability around me, but also kind of actively go and seek people out and seek student groups out and get their feedback, which again isn't always super easy for me, but I'm trying. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Good, wonderful. And that is great, especially with the whole angle of student engagement, because really and truly, it's hard to have a student engage with, well, a brick wall. You can't engage with something that doesn't want to be engaged. So that is really, really encouraging to hear. And I would really, really like to see how that helps with your campaigns and just the general effectiveness of the delivery of your work.